The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Russell. Welcome to the Healing Light Podcast. I am a psychic intuitive who's been reading tarot cards for over 25 years. I'm also Reiki certified. Join me as I read cards, share intuitive messages, promote healing, and much, much more. Hi, everybody. It's Caitlin from the Healing Light NH. I am a psychic medium, tarot and oracle card reader, as well as a Reiki master. You are listening to the Healing Light Podcast, a space where I pull the curtain off of topics such as tarot, psychic mediumship, energy healing, paranormal, and much, much more. Before I get to my special guest tonight, I just want to remind everyone that you can tune in on the first and third Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find the Healing Light podcast on the Spreaker app, Spotify, Amazon, and basically everywhere you get your podcasts. I always welcome feedback on the shows, as well as your suggestions as to the topics you want to hear about or guests you'd like me to interview. For social media, I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as the Healing Light NH. Please feel free to send me a direct message for feedback, or you can email me at thehealinglight1, that's the healinglight number 1 at gmail.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. So I'm very excited. This is a first for me. My special guest tonight is Steven Noack, and he is he's a member of the Trinity Quantum Health, and he's here to talk about his near-death experience. Now, Steve, I want to say, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for being a guest on the Healing Light podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Happy to share whatever helped me help others.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's what I really like to do with the podcast is help others, with their spiritual or healing journey. And so when I thought about topics that I wanted to cover, I have to talk to somebody who's had a near-death experience, because I know. I've read a little bit about people's experiences, but I don't know a lot about it, and I want to hear it firsthand. I have to talk to him about this first. So why don't you go ahead and share with everyone your near-death experience?
Sure. And I find it super interesting, the similarities, even though a lot of people's near-death experiences differ. There's a lot of similarities of the garden and other things, and I didn't even really know. At first what had happened. I knew something happened, but I wasn't sure what. And it took me till about 10 or 11, 12, going through puberty to start to get these memories back. And I realized pretty quickly that nobody really wanted, it wouldn't do any good to tell anybody. Nobody wanted to hear it. They'd think I was crazier than I was already. So I kept these memories to myself, and they continued to grow. So I'll back up, and I was 4 years old. And I'm riding a big wheel, which is a very small plastic tricycle for anyone listening, not from the 70s. So I'm riding my big wheel, and I'm across the street, and I'm ready to cross the street because my brother called to me, And he said, we're going to the mall. And that all I heard was the mall, and I saw toys in my head. And I zoomed down the driveway, and there was a car coming. I went between two parked cars, and the car hit me. And the woman had been drinking as well, so she didn't know she hit me. And she continued going with me underneath the car. Luckily, the big wheel saved me. But I was under the car. Once bystanders finally got her to stop, like 25 feet later. So what I initially remember is like a blur. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at myself, but I'm naked. And I see my eyes roll in the back of my head. And the screen fades like the end of a movie. And it opens up again. And I'm sitting with someone who I think is someone. And I'm leaning on him, kind of leaning over to the side. And my head is down. So as I open my eyes, the very first thing I see is like the floor. And I could tell it was like carpeted. And hair, and it was long hair. It was almost touching the floor. There was a robe as well, like the bottom of a robe, and kind of like sandals, and the hair was like luminescent silver. And I'm thinking, who is this? What happened? I'm just kind of confused at that moment. And I turn to ask him, what happened? And it's instead of a person, it's a being with no face. They only have light for a face, and it's a hooded figure. Like a silver robe, or luminescent rather, silver hair that kind of shimmers when it moves. And I'm staring at the face for a second, trying to just digest what's happening or process what's happening. And I asked them what happened. And they said, Steven, you were in an accident. Put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And as I do this, I'm kind of looking in this being's face. I put my head down on their chest. I'm staring in their face. And I'm now feeling pulled as if I'm like going into this being's light or face or whatever. And I'm getting pulled. And as I get closer and closer, I start to see a scene kind of open up. And it's meadows and flowers at first. And it's meadow upon meadow and the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen. Still to this day, I haven't seen colors like that or vibrancy. Everything seemed to be much more real. So I see the colors and the flowers, and I see and notice and feel that they're their own beings, that these colors going through these flowers were their own beings. They had separate consciousness in some way. So I notice the colors, the flowers, and I see people in the distance, and they're kind of playing, and I could see it's an elderly man and it's a child, and they seem really far away, but they feel close. And it's hard to explain that, but they're very far away, and I see they're having fun, and I see the children kind of dancing, and one of them laughs, and the laugh just flows through the air. Again, it's like it was its own being and color, and it just flew through the air, and it touched the center of my heart, or what I knew to be my heart as I was in that moment. And it was like instant download. I knew everything was one. I knew everything came from this place, and everything would go back to it. And I also knew pain couldn't exist there, suffering, things like that. It wasn't that it didn't. It can't even form function. Like, that's how clean, vibrating this frequency was. And I wanted to go there, and they said, Steven, it's not your time. We have other things to show you. And it was like somebody just, in a play, if you will, slid the screen to the side, and I'm standing in like this other room now instead of watching the scene. And it's almost like space, but without stars. And then I see lines, and they're going up and down, crossed each other, and they tell me this is the quantum field, and each and every person has a divine blueprint stored in this field for, you could say, redemption, restoration. I understood it as kind of like a circuit, a way to recircuit my system. And it took me a while to process a lot of this and figure it out. Of course, I'm 4. I'm now 49. So they're speaking about the divine blueprint and about how people can restore their divinity by placing their identity in this blueprint. In other words, their thought, and unsubscribing to the identities being given to them by the world. They're being plugged into, in other words. Their identity's already been given. It's just a matter of having the mind and the body catch up. So they tell me this is like a restoration circuit, if you will. Plug into this, and your system will come back into the center, because we rewired ourselves for survival as life forms here, most life forms. We have trauma, we rewire ourselves to just function and get by. This I kind of saw as, later in my journey, the ticket out of the matrix is to identify myself as my divine blueprint, as the image of creator I was made in. So as they're talking about this divine blueprint and reconnecting my thought and my identity to it, it's way off in the distance, and it almost looks like a credit card, but missing one corner, and it has circuits on it, similar to a motherboard. So the next thing I see, that kind of fades away. I see a triangle. Triangle kind of comes into being. It kind of lights up with this dark background like the night sky. And they say, this is Heavenly Father. This is Divine Mother. Make them one, and they'll have a son. Make the three one, actually. And they also mentioned this was thought and breath. This was the conscious mind and the subconscious mind becoming one. Heaven and earth, as above, so below. And they were telling me this was a circuit with the heart of the universe, the Christ, the law of one. It's a singularity, if you will, very similar to a 0 point. And I wanted to kind of later in my life get to that point, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So they're speaking about the 0 point. They're speaking about thought and breath, heaven and earth, rewiring myself to basically exit the system I was in. And they were showing me that my reality is created through my thoughts and feelings and then sent to this field, and it circuits back. So I have a thought, it goes to my heart, it broadcasts and circles back through my system. And this helps me interpret material reality as a being of energy. So they were just showing me these things. I had no idea what they meant. Later, they would come back and start teaching me how to use them to heal myself. So they also showed me as myself, but I was watching myself now like an observer in the center of a wagon wheel. And this was when they were talking about thoughts and emotions creating our reality in relationship with the quantum field. They showed me as like a ball of energy, if you will, in the center of this wagon wheel. And they told me that human beings, when they come into their incarnation, their love, they spend their energy to have a material reality. And this is what makes us linear. This is kind of what disconnects us from by spreading out our energy, but that we can call all of this back into the moment of now. We can make the past, present, and future one. Have a singularity, if you will, with that 0 point that occurs from those two energies, those two poles that are within us, positive and negative, coming together, and they start to spin. So they were talking about spending our energy to have a material reality, calling all of that back into the moment of now, and showed me that this was kind of like a life review that you could have while you're alive. So that kind of ended. And at 4, naturally, that was a lot to remember. I knew something intense had happened. But again, 10, 11, 12, that's when I started to get the memories back, tried to share them. Nobody wanted to hear it. So I carried on with my life. I figured it was in my past. Done with. I'm a store manager at GameStop. This is my career. This is what I'm doing. Lo and behold, I actually had quite a few car accidents after that as well. Played sports. I was in a tremendous amount of physical pain. I figured I would always need pain medication to function for the rest of my life. So as I'm having a surgery on my elbow, I think I was probably about 10 years ago, I would have to say, maybe a little bit more. I'm having surgery and I'm feeling kind of anxious. I want to get up and leave. And right about like probably a millisecond from me leaving, because I don't like doctors. I never really got much help for all the things I went through, which actually is why I devoted myself to this, to give not only myself first, but to show others who aren't getting the help they need. But so I'm laying down, I'm getting ready to have elbow surgery. I want to get up, and this voice says, "Steven, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." Exactly the same thing they said to me at 4. And this energy just started at my feet, and it was warm and love, but I could feel it encapsulate me, go all over my body. And something in my mind broke open that day, because all of a sudden I started to have all these visions, more memories about what I experienced, a lot of things about the ascension of humanity, the evolution of consciousness, being a biological machine, having a quantum transformer in us, being wired to an alternating current and needing to rewire myself to a direct current to break basically the environment's push and pull over my emotions through the downloaded cellular memory from my experiences. So they were teaching me how to discharge a lot of the things I'd stored in my body as trauma. At that point, I have all these visions, I have all these emotions, I'm sweating. I come out of it, I go back to work. I'm like, okay, that was strange. So I go back to work. Normally, I start to hear people's thoughts. I start to feel their energies. I start to laugh out of nowhere. I start to cry out of nowhere. I start to feel all these things running through me that I never felt before. I started to feel people's hunger as well. I literally knew when people were hungry. And that was strange figuring it out, just asking people, hey, you hungry? And understanding I just ate literally 5 minutes before and I was entirely full. So it got to be so invasive. There was so much happening at my job. And it got to be really intense. I had to leave the job. So this was probably, I would say, 7 years ago. And then balls of lights would start appearing in my room. These beings appeared in my room, said they were from the Galactic Federation. They were here again to teach me about the evolution of consciousness and the ascension of humanity, that I agreed to this. And I told them to go away. I was eating at the time. I'd never heard of what the Galactic Federation was, never heard of Arcturians, never heard of any of that stuff. So I said, yeah, go away, come back another time. Because at this time, it was getting intense. I had just left my job. I'm also experiencing now, starting to hear spirits and other energies, which I never have in my life. I was always sensitive, but I just figured that's the way I was, but never that sensitive. So I started to hear spirits, and then I started to see them, silhouettes moving back and forth. And then the conversation started to be not so nice. I started to tune them in. They weren't so nice. And it took me a few months of driving myself crazy, not sleeping well, to understand that they were being transmitted through me, that they were a distortion of the light that was already coming through me, and that I had to tune my thoughts and my emotions, and that this would literally tune them out. But also that they were responsible for a lot of the things that I had brought upon myself when I was younger. The way I spoke to myself, the way I felt I was unworthy or undeserving. And I picked that up in the conversation. So I was literally seeing behind this type of quantum system that was broadcasting a projection, like a lot of us do in certain environments. We wear certain personas, but they were all caught up in the system. And I was getting to see how they were affecting my mental health, my physical pain. So during this time, as these Arcturians showed up in my room, I tell them to go away, which they did. And I started to research some of the information they had given me, and I found some truth to it. Then they came back again, and they began to show me how to use the Trinity to rewire my system, to discharge a lot of the pain that was in my body. And during this time, as I started to go to like every church I could find. I thought I was crazy. I started to go into every denominational church to talk to someone I could find. And most of them were just pretty much, They weren't able to handle the depth of what I was saying, because I knew there was also some type of spiritual war, but I want to be careful about how I label that. But there was energy, quantum energy being harvested from us, and patterns and programs out there that were keeping us kind of bound in this matrix, if you will. And, in time, I learned the way out was this direct current to bring father and mother together so they have a son. And I learned I had a son in my center, a singularity. So let's see, what else? During that time, I also had an experience where I was driving home in my car and I was being rough on myself, beating myself up for never being good enough, and which a lot of that was childhood trauma and things like that. And early in my life led me to car accidents, overdoses, pain medication, which all of this was freed from me when these beings returned and started teaching me how to use it. But I don't want to get too far off track. So the experience, I'm driving home, I'm starting to get, that inner speak going where I'm just beating up on myself. And this voice comes through and starts telling me how beautiful I am, all the people that I've helped and all the people that love me. And I noticed this voice didn't sound like the other type of interference that I was experiencing. But so I said, "Who are you?" And the voice said, "I am." And I was never religious, never went to church, didn't know what any of this meant. So I said, "I am who?" And the voice said, "I am." "Yeah, I am who," was my response. And then the voice said one more time, "I am." And then it was like every emotion I ever had in my life, along with every memory, came up at one time, but separately. I felt it all at the same time, but I felt it separately. And these visions came through, and at the same time, I started bawling and crying. I had to pull the car over. And then it was just supernatural experience after supernatural experience. I go back to work. I have a woman fall outside of my store. She's an elderly woman. She falls on the pavement. She was in pretty good pain. She fell right on the cement. So I go out there. I'm the first one to see her. I put my hand on her back. Somebody comes out. They call EMTs. And she looks at me. And as soon as I put my hand on her back, she says, "I'm all warm and I have no pain." And I'm like, that, because I felt my hand get warm too. And I'm like, that was weird. So I'm slowly starting to put all this stuff together, these visitations, that, which I had no idea at the time what it meant. Then start the dreams where I'm going on ships and I have no hair. I have a white suit. I'm going on these white ships and I'm waking up covered in sweat whenever I have these dreams, months apart, same ship, different areas. As well as memories of logging in to the experience and being the one behind the thought, the player of this game, if you will, in this theater of characters who are all me. They're all coming from the same place. So in essence, it's all me. So a lot of it in the healing was spoken through identity. It's what we identify ourselves with and as. So they taught me how to use the Trinity to heal myself. I don't know if you want to ask any questions.
That's a lot. Yeah, I have a lot of questions. It's just fascinating. When I was thinking back to you saying when you were 4, and here you are having this traumatic accident. And at any point, did you ever feel fear? Did you feel calm right away? Or I would think I would be scared as a little kid if I.
It was more confusion. It was more like not being able to tell if this is real, almost like being self-aware in a dream.
Okay.
That's what it felt like, being self-aware in a dream, where I couldn't tell if this was real or not. So as the memories started to return, I'm like, that was real. And I'm getting kind of like confirmation for myself. And I'm like, something did happen, That's where all these feelings came from, and these other type of personalities that I guess could be labeled more sensitive as I process more of the environment. But no fear, just confused. And I'm like, what's going on? Hey, what's this? Hey, what's this? Hey, what's this? And it seemed to be almost like I got the information. Many years pass. And honestly, because of what I experienced young, I figured if there was a God, he didn't like me. I'm like, all this darkness following. So I honestly thought that experience was just a memory and it was done with. But no fear, just confusion, really. Love, pure love. As soon as that energy hit my center, it was like boom, and it just I reverberated throughout the entire universe, and I was one with all things, and I knew there was no separation. And to get back to that feeling was the goal, and that's what started to happen as these beings returned. Another event was I was sitting out in my yard one night, watching the stars and things like that, and breathing, and all of a sudden I'm lifted. I feel like I'm being lifted up, my body, but my body wasn't moving. I'm being lifted out of my body. Instantly, every pain I had melted. It was gone. And then these beings started talking to me about your biological machine. You have something like a frequency oscillator or a Tesla coil going from your third eye down to this quantum generator. Whatever you feed it in terms of data and information is going to be created as a character, as embodiment. They were also teaching me how to rewire my mind and my heart to work together, conscious and subconscious, instead of having conflicting drives through the trauma and the cellular memory that I had. Most people you see, they're very logic-minded, maybe a little emotion, or the other way around. But when they work together, that's a direct current. So they were teaching me to correct my inputs and my outputs as well. What do I identify with and allow in my inner speak, as well as people's approval and validation and opinions? How do I internalize that? In other words, how do I process that data? Where do I store it? Well, right away, I learned, right away, the thing to do is, thank you for what you're teaching me, but I don't identify with you. I send you into the heart space, into the Christ, into the law of one, which we all are in the flesh, but it's a matter of getting the mind and the heart to catch up. We're divine law made flesh. So by rerouting certain signals that were going on, that lower undeserving childhood trauma, abandonment, whatever it was, I began to reroute that, but also through neuroplasticity, rewire my brain on what's acceptable as far as certain information and what's not, as well as what I resonate with. So I went on that journey of really learning about the nervous system, how to bring energies together to cause action potentials, which sends the nervous system from a normal 5 hertz range to 7 hertz, where we begin to discharge energy through our ion channels. It's an exchange of potassium. So it took me a long time simply on the journey to figure out what was happening to me, what was happening to clients who all of a sudden got put in my path. And I'm like, well, maybe I can help you. And I tried, and I did. And they started to have visions and all that stuff. But it's been a journey of understanding that everybody can do this. It's available to everyone. That seed of redemption is already in us. That divine law is coded into our DNA. It's just a matter of enlightening it. So they talked a lot about gnosis as well during that time where I was lifted out of my body. Now, the most important thing to note that I picked up from all that was, man, I just felt no pain in my body while I'm alive. I don't have to die to go feel heaven. I just felt it just now. If I can recreate that state of being in that space in me, guess what? I'm out of physical pain. I'm out of emotional interference and all these systems that want to wire me to a different place other than the moment of now. And that's really what it was about, is going on that journey to make, again, past, present, future one. No longer held by shame, guilt, or regret. No longer fear, worry, or anxiety about the future. Making it all present. So that was another experience, as well as missing time. There was a day that I was going through that time where the balls of light were coming in and they were speaking to me, where I went to the gas station. I pumped gas, went in to pay, And I saw this kid get out of line, and he went to go pay for a peanut butter cup. And I'll never forget this. And he turns and asks his father. His father says yes. He has one in his hand. He goes back, does the same thing again. Goes back, grabs one, asks his dad, and everything was the exact same. So I went out, got in my car, thought about it for a minute. That was really strange. Turned on the car. They're talking to a woman on the radio because the radio was already on. She won a radio contest, so they're talking about the answer. 2 seconds later, the phone's ringing on the radio. It's the woman, and they ask her the question. I'm like, I just heard the answer. So that was the day I thought I might need to commit myself to the hospital. But it led me to like purification, to really self-reflect about what I was introducing into my system that was causing disharmony. So yeah, a lot of supernatural things, seeing like angelic energies in my room. I'm just like, for the most part, I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to work. I'm just trying to have my family not think I'm crazy, because they did. You know, they wanted me to see a shrink and everything, and which, no fault on them. You know, I never talked about God. I never went to college to learn about quantum anything. So a lot of this was coming as a surprise to family. But years later, now I've helped hundreds around the globe, and I can quantum entangle with people. I can help them from any distance, because what we're doing is we're circuiting with the same circuit. They were already loved before they came here. It's just a matter of having that realization and allowing the body to come back online with that. Because the beautiful thing is, whatever we feed the body as truth, it's going to accept and download. So it's a matter of what I'm identifying with. So I want to identify myself as all of creation, because this is going to cause me to expand. But yeah, I'll let you break in. I spoke enough.
No, it's fine. I'm fascinated. So, you know, it's just, to me, you are one of those rare, I don't want to say, it sounds so cliche, gifted, but it's almost like, to me, that you were handed a gift, not just of, surviving, and thank God you did. I mean, but the gift of being able to, how can I put this, transcend time, space, energy. I mean, that's rare. That, we talk about that because I'm a Reiki practitioner, about energy and crossing over that threshold, and how you can, everyone has it within themselves, but it's rare to me to have that gift that you have been given. So, and
it seems to be like an innate knowing. Whatever touched me during that experience was downloaded, and it was a matter of unpacking it. Yeah. And then you get into that stage of gnosis.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. And I had one incident where, and when you talk about with the no faces, but the being, yeah, you recognize that, because I had that happen to me. And it was, I didn't have a near-death experience, but,
that's what led me to understand more and more that it was real, because I was seeing other people's experiences, and it was very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just remember, and when I looked years later, and I was looking for art for my office, and I looked on Pinterest, and I found this picture, and I said, "That's it. That's who appeared to me." It was this no face, beautiful colors like of the rainbow, just shining bright. And so, oh yeah, absolutely. And I get where you're coming from when you think people are like, you need to see someone or take a pill.
I mean, I was foam. I was on another planet after that. Yeah. And it was like a dam broke, to be honest with you, with this space that I wasn't able to access. As soon as I recognized that's the being that I sat with at 4, that was it. It was like a floodgate. And I tried to hold it back. Part of me was fighting it for a long time. And I realized I would never be healthy again until I told my story. I would never be healthy again until I let this out, because it would be backed up.
Yeah, I can imagine, because how many people you've helped by sharing your experiences. I think we all, we all have that question about how, this is my reality, but what is it I'm truly meant to be or meant to, what is the reason? What is it?
Yeah,
And
where's that purpose and passion,
yeah,
and what
exactly.
is
Where is it?
driving?
Yeah, exactly. And it does transcend that space and time, and you do go from that linear to to be able to just cross over.
Yeah,
Uh,
it seems like that is the alternating current where we're pushed and pulled
yeah,
through the trauma stored in our body by the environmental or circumstances, rather than that 0 point ground where I have a gnosis and literally a feeling. And what I ask my clients is, do you know how to tie your shoes? Of course I do. Think about it. Same knowing feeling, but I want to couple that with that I'm a sovereign being, that I'm already whole, that I'm already one with all things, because that's going to start to travel the furthest through my nervous system, the more firm in knowing I can be about it.
yeah,
As
absolutely.
well as quantum leaping. You want to spend time focusing on the self that is already where you want to be in a year, and then knowing it's already happened. Start giving thanks for what's already happened.
Yeah. So I want to get to Trinity Quantum Health, but I just was curious. So, because I know this too, everyone has that innate ability, or they have it inside. It needs to be released. So, what do you recommend for people who are, again, it's going to sound cliche, but that's almost that spiritual awakening, I call it like when you want to vibrate at that higher
Mm-hmm.
higher level. So what would you say to people to help them to kind of get closer to that point? Or if anybody can do it, then
Oh, absolutely. The missing key is bringing the positive and negative together, the black and the white, and making the two one. And most people I know have a meditation practice,
mm-hmm.
but they don't have a programming practice. They're not speaking into the body a program. And the biggest difference you can make is to program your parameters before you go throughout the day. I already am. Now, this is going to keep me from casting lines, basically creating other circuits with unhealthy things for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, or seeking validation or approval where it's already been given, because that's what opens me up to embody lower energy that doesn't really have the ability to identify me. So you want to do breath,
Mm-hmm.
Divine Mother, up, and then I want to use my thought and make the two one. I want to speak to my body again because I already was love before I came here. I already was whole, and I want to reconnect to the one behind the thought. Because if I have a self-realization, then who is the I and who is the self? Right? Which is which? Am I the I or am I the self? So what I want to do is have the breath work and then speaking the programming into my body to enlighten that divine law that's already on my DNA. We're talking epigenetics, we're talking a code that's already written in there. But breath work, speaking to the body as if something is already accomplished, giving thanks for already being healed. Also, speaking directly to your pain. And this was something, nature has been a big factor since I was a kid. I was in the creek, I was in nature, and it kept me in that space when I was a kid, and I needed it again when I came out of this, and I had no family left because they all thought I was crazy. And then I went off and I'm like, that's it, me and God, we're doing this. And I started to go into nature to self-cleanse, self-purify, to do that breath work, to do that reclaiming of my system. So speaking directly to your pain, it's going to cause it to move. Speaking directly to your ailments, the more firm you are in knowing that you have a right to claim that neural pathway, that you have a right to disrupt this information, that it's just from the world. So you want to recognize your divine self by speaking to your system. I am the image of creator I was made in. I already am whole. I already am loved. I already am forgiven. But it's your intent. Whatever energy you place behind that, that's your intent. You want to make it genuine. Thank you. So breathing and speaking to your system. speaking directly to the pain like you would a burglar. Make no distinction of difference. Thank you for what you're teaching me, but you're not welcome here. You taught me to lock the door. You taught me how to process and store information through my heart intuitively rather than down in my body where it's going to cause me issues. And that's another big step throughout our daily, is to speak to these energies as they come up. Thank you for what you're teaching me. I send you into the heart space, because you want to disrupt the cycle of rolling through your entire body.
Yeah. Okay. That's all good. Very helpful. I am going to try that. I'm going to do that.
You'd be surprised
at
how much cellular memory you can move, because that's what we're moving. We're storing cellular memory. I'm looking to discharge it, but I need to create some polarity first between the mind and the heart, conscious, subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. So did this lead you to, it's Trinity Quantum Health, correct? That's what you're part of?
Right.
So,
in the very beginning, I studied Reiki. It was really a self thing. I wanted to figure out what was happening with me. I became a Reiki master. And then later, as more and more visitations and memories and downloads came in, I realized, I'm the energy and I'm the player in this quantum game. Not only that, I'm having a love story with all of creation, not exactly the characters, much as we all are, but that it was also 0 point that I was after. I was after that Christ within me, that singularity, to move into a state of absolute zero.
Okay, awesome. All right, this is a really fascinating conversation. I am so glad I had you on, because
I forgot to mention, I used to be pretty normal. So for all the listeners and everybody out there, man, I'm just a regular Joe. I was going to work, and you wouldn't even know me if you saw me in the grocery store.
I would dare you to define what normal is in this. Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, you have no idea. Yeah, and after the day I had, wow, I'm so glad we had this conversation. So if people want to find you, they want to find out more about you, or what you can offer, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. You can visit my website, trinityquantumhealth.com. I'll also be a co-author in a book with a few other authors. That's available for pre-order at neardeathinstitute.com, I believe. That shares some of my experiences in there as well. But I mean, in closing, I would say everyone is having their own love story with creation. So don't close yourself off because of certain characters and really minimize your experience. You want to keep an eye when you get contracted and speak to my system that I'm already whole. Learn how to expand it, because you're always going to be contracted. It's a matter of having the tools to expand it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was tragic what you went through, no doubt, but at the same time, it brought you into this space where, that you have so much to offer, and it, profoundly changed your life, and it, helped shape the way you are. And it's a never-ending process, I know. So you still got, you still have time to grow and all that.
Oh yeah,
so,
everybody has their next level, all on our own individualization. Yeah. But to go from being pain-riddled to thinking I'm going to be that way the rest of my life, I'll be in a wheelchair, to now taking nothing. I don't even like taking ibuprofen. I rely solely on my energetic system. If I have something going on, nature, breathing, thought, and then I'm back in that heavenly space where it can't form function. And we can all visit there now.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much for coming on the Healing Light podcast. I will wish you well, and I'm sure the people who are listening now will be running to read your book when it's published. I know I will be, and I'm very excited for that. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening.
All right, take care.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions